Hello and welcome to Easy PPC Tutorials. Now in this video I'm taking a slightly different tack from recent videos that I've done. I've put together a sort of slideshow presentation that I'm going to talk you through on what I like to call hidden brand search and the effects of this on campaign performance. Before I jump into the problem that we're going to solve in this particular video, one thing I do want to say is this new format is kind of different to what I've done in the past. I've normally done more screen recordings within the Google Ads interface. If you like the sort of concept of this type of video, where I pick a particular issue and dive into a bit more detail in a controlled sort of presentation manner, let me know in the comment section. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that kind of stuff. If you think it's a terrible idea, I want to know as well. If people like this type of video, I will do more of them, but I'll work on making a nicer template. I just did a really basic one to start. Let's get stuck in. So the problem we're trying to solve today is really quite a key one I keep coming up against when I'm auditing Google Ads accounts for clients, when I'm looking into clients' Google Ad accounts and seeing how things are performing. That problem is that branded terms are sneaking into non-branded campaigns and or ad groups without the advertiser realizing. So let's use an example. Let's imagine that my business name is Samco. Funnily enough, my name is Sam, and I sell a well-known product that's called the Legend Marathon shoe. So that's like Apple sells the MacBook or the iPhone, right? The product category for the Legend Marathon shoe is running shoes, and the keyword I'm targeting is running shoes for sale. I'm using a phrase match keyword. So the sorts of search terms that I might see if I were auditing or reviewing a Google Ads account like this, and we haven't looked at the sort of brand search aspect of it, is it might see proper sort of desirable search terms coming through, like men running shoes for sale. But what we'll often see are branded or product brand search terms coming through as well, especially if the brand has a good kind of presence in the market. So men's running shoes for sale, that's exactly the kind of thing we want to advertise for. But Samco running shoes for sale or Legend Marathon running shoes for sale, those kind of terms are not necessarily what we want. Let's use a real world example from a business you'll all know and some of you will love and some of you hate, and that's Apple. So take a well-known product, MacBook Air. The product category here that they're trying to sell into is laptops for sale, and the keyword is laptop for sale. In this example, it's a broad match. I have no idea how Apple runs its search advertising, whether they do it internally or externally, and what that looks like, but just giving you an example of how I would often come across this kind of problem. And so the example search terms you might see, things like laptop for sale for student, MacBook Air is good for students. So if someone's searching a laptop for sale for student, it's a great kind of fit. But from the perspective of the problem we're addressing in today's video, which is branded terms and product brands, or well-known product names coming into your search terms and having an artificial impact on performance, and I'll come to that shortly. You might see terms come through like Apple laptop for sale or buy MacBook Air, and these are bad. Now, why is this a problem? Why is branded search and product brand search potentially a problem? Well, there are a couple of reasons for this. So the key thing, in my view, is that if you don't split out your branded terms and your sort of product brand terms, so like Apple and MacBook Air and iPhone, or Samco and the Legend Marathon shoe, if you don't split that out, the risk you run is that Google Ads becomes this sort of black box, and you have a campaign or an ad group or a series of campaigns and ad groups, however your account is structured, where performance winds up looking a lot better than it is because you've got branded terms coming through your search terms. So people are searching branded terms like buy MacBook Air or Legend Marathon shoe from Samco for sale, and it's showing up in the reporting. And because a lot of advertisers don't tend to dig really deep into the performance of their search terms and split them out in this kind of manner, it makes your ad campaigns and ad groups look like they're performing better than they might be, because typically branded search performs a lot better in terms of higher conversion rate, lower cost per conversion or sale, greater return on ad spend, lower cost per click, higher click-through rates, all those kind of things. And so you can wind up with these branded terms basically carrying the rest of the team without you even realizing, unless you dig into the numbers. So I'll give you an example of the black box effect. So basically, branded, including product name searches, as I mentioned, typically enjoy lower CPC, higher CTR, higher conversion rates, lower cost per conversion, just better performance overall. But when merged into non-branded activity, so trying to advertise to prospective customers in market for your category of service or product who aren't specifically looking for your product or your brand, the branded activity can mask performance issues and make your campaign or ad group appear to be performing better than it really is. Google loves this. This is the key thing to bear in mind. Google absolutely loves this. If you wind up having branded and product name search terms coming through your campaigns without you realizing, because it allows them to paint a better picture for you as an advertiser, meaning you're probably going to spend more money on Google Ads. So I'll give you a real world example from an old job of mine. Several years ago, I worked for a sports supplement company that had a very well known brand name in the New Zealand market. And that was owing to some really memorable TV ads and some other campaigns that run this. If you were into like working out at the gym or sports training and you're of a certain age, I won't mention the company name here, but you would know the ad if you lived in New Zealand, 100%. Most people would probably still remember how it goes. It really was the sort of incumbent go-to brand in the market. Now, when I took over managing Google ad campaigns for this particular business, we had generic campaigns for product categories: protein powder, pre-workout, weight loss supplements, those kind of things. Now, when I first started the job, one of the first things I did was a search term analysis, and I was able to calculate that branded search terms, e.g. brand name protein powder, represented about 10% of the total account spend, but were making about 90% of the revenue in terms of directly tracked Google Ads transactions. So basically, 10% of the ad spend was yielding 90% of the results in effect. Now, factoring in the product margins, which are often quite tight in this industry, almost all of the other search activity was actually unprofitable in terms of generating an initial transaction or initial customer. If that customer came back because they had great experience and bought again, so they searched protein powder for sale and then they bought from us and it was basically unprofitable. If they came back again, there was profit in that. But in terms of, hey, Google Ads activity alone, just looking at that first interaction with the business, everything that was non-branded search in terms of the search terms was largely unprofitable. And looking at the campaign and ad group level, however, every campaign initially seemed to be profitable because the brand terms that were sneaking through and coming through were carrying the team. And the agency that had been running the ads before was pretty happy to keep that going because there wasn't a huge amount of oversight in terms of the reporting, and the business was pretty time pressured in terms of the marketing team resource until we expanded the team. That's how I got hired into the business in the first place, to actually go in and dive into this in more detail. But basically, the brand name that had been built up from this like really catchy TV advertising and early influencer campaigns. This is going back quite a few years now, and offering good products at fair prices and providing really good customer service. Those things had meant that people were going and directly looking to buy protein powder and pre-workout and so on from this company, and they were the ones who were basically yielding really profitable Google Ads search. Everything else, because the profit margins was fairly unprofitable, to be honest. So how do you solve this problem? The first step is to assess. So check your search terms report for campaigns and ad groups to see if branded terms are appearing in any generic focused activity or campaign. I'd recommend doing a full analysis using Google Sheets or Excel to work out the performance differential between branded and non-branded activity as well. So something as simple as exporting all of your search term data over the last 30 days or 90 days or last year even into Google Sheets. You can download reports directly into Google Sheets, which is really handy. And then actually just running some basic filters to say, look, I want to filter search terms based on brand or product terms versus the generic activity. So using Apple, for example, once again, it would be, hey, let's run the report with all the search terms and then see how ones that include Apple and MacBook Air and iPhone and iPad perform versus laptops for sale or tablet computers for sale or smartphones for sale or anything like that. It's purely generic. And what you might find in this process is that you might identify branded terms aren't really a problem. You might not have any issues here. You might be, say, new to the market and there's not many people searching for your brand name or your product terms or your service terms. And so everything's generic anyway. When I say generic, I mean basically not brand specific or product brand specific. And you could probably just leave it here. That's fine. Just keep an eye on it. But on the other hand, if you find that the branded terms are a problem in the sense that they are yielding most of the conversions, really disproportionately outperforming the generic non-branded activity, then move on to step two. And step two is where you restructure. So create brand and or product term specific campaigns so you can ring fence this activity and properly control it, and more easily assess performance and optimize. So it might be that it's only your brand name like Acme Co or Apple or Microsoft or whatever that is the problem here, not specific products like the MacBook or the Xbox or Legend Marathon shoe, in which case you just need to have a brand name campaign. And I recommend using separate campaigns as opposed to an ad group within an existing campaign, just so you can really ring fence this properly. Then you would use negative keywords to block your branded terms from your generic campaigns and effectively force activity to your branded campaign. So, for example, let's say you wound up with two campaigns, a generic one that's got your different sort of product categories as ad groups, and then you've got your brand terms campaign. Your branded terms would go as negative keywords on your generic campaign, so that if someone searches for Apple MacBook Air for sale, Google's basically forced by the negative keywords to show an ad from your brand terms campaign. You might also decide to block brand activity altogether. Now, some businesses do this because they don't want to pay over and above what they're probably getting for free from organic search. Some businesses block it, especially some of the B2B clients I work with. They block it because they've got issues where they shouldn't really be competing with resellers of their products, for example. And so, they would rather have in a specific area a reseller who captures the lion's share of branded search. So there's that kind of consideration. Equally, you might want to keep it going. That's beyond the scope of this video as to whether it's worth pursuing branded search activity or not. But I can make more video content on that if you're interested. Just drop a comment. The final step is to optimize accordingly. So now you can more easily observe and assess performance, make changes to your campaigns with a more accurate understanding of what's working, what's converting profitably, and so on. And then you can look at your sort of wider marketing and say, hey, how can we grow brand awareness and consideration so more customers seek your products and services directly, bypassing the competition? That should always be the goal. It's great if you can set up a campaign, say you sell sports supplements like I used to, where someone searches protein powder for sale NZ. Obviously, I'm living in New Zealand. That's why I use that example. Someone searches protein powder for sale NZ. They're not looking for any specific brand. They click on my business's ads and they come and buy from me and it's profitable. That's great. But in an ideal world, you want them to not even bother going on Google in the first place. They should just come to you directly. Just like, to be honest, if I was going to go buy a smartphone, I'd go check out what Apple's got in terms of their latest iPhones first. Or here in New Zealand, if I want to fly somewhere, I go to Air New Zealand first and foremost. They're the kind of incumbent in the marketplace. I can't remember the last time I searched flights for sale NZ. I just go straight to Air New Zealand. And only if the pricing's so bad would I even bother jumping to any of the other competition. So looking at how you can grow your brand awareness and consideration is really important. Equally, when you've split out brand and non-branded activity, you can more accurately measure. You can see if your non-branded activity is even profitable at all. You can work, diligently to kind of improve the performance of those campaigns and ad groups, rather than thinking they're performing really well, or in fact, it's just the branded terms that are sort of bubbling away under the surface that are actually carrying the performance of your campaigns and ad groups, while the generic stuff doesn't work very well. And don't forget that you can also repeat this process, but in reverse, sort of, for competitor terms. So if you find when you're doing a search terms review, you've got a whole lot of competitor terms coming through that are often more expensive in terms of cost per click, lower CTR, worse conversion rate, and so on, you might say, hey, let's move those into their own campaign so we can see if it's worth even pursuing competitor terms. Or you might also want to say, hey, you know what, actually, let's just can this all together. We're going to use negative keywords to block our ads showing for competitor terms. So basically, if you've got any questions on this, leave a comment in the comment section of this video. Like the video if it was helpful. Please do consider leaving a comment as well. I'd like to hear your feedback on this concept of kind of presentation style training, and subscribe to my channel for more Google Ads and PPC marketing advice. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.